Thank you. Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here this morning. We have had an opportunity over the past year to engage on a couple of different issues in my state, certainly Homer, the Barrow coastal erosion, and I want to thank you for a pretty pragmatic approach to working with me and my team and your focus on the Alaska projects and the partnership going forward. I think the more we can be open and communicating well with one another, the better off we're going to be. I am pleased to see funding for the Port of Nome construction and the Homer GI both included in the 24 work plan as well as the FY25 budget request. As you know, these are very high priorities, particularly the Port of Nome due to its national security significance. But that being said, there's been a lot of advocacy to ensure that both of these projects stay on track. So I'm a little bit concerned going into the 25 process and beyond that we're going to appropriately prioritize these in the budget process. Concerning Nome particularly, this kind of seems to be a case study in rhetoric versus reality, with our nation's challenge to match the projects of national security and economic significance with the processes that we have at our disposal and how to fund them. We know that Port of Nome is a civil works project. Senator Sullivan and I have been talking to a lot of our national security officials and flag officers, both directly and in person and off the record, as we underscore the strategic and national security imperative into the Arctic region. A lot of dual-use benefits for both commercial and national security interests in the Arctic, where we've seen investment really lacking, and I think both of you would agree with that. And yet, while we've got some unanimity on the value of the project, we can't seem to get the same level of enthusiasm or gusto when it comes to funding it. This year's budget request of $25 million is the first regular order construction request for the project, notwithstanding Nome's previous award of $250 million for construction, which was due, of course, to IJA. So that $25 million, it's absolutely essential. I think we all know it's far from the cost to complete. So we're looking at a project that's going to be in the range of $500 million. And so I look at the $25 million request and don't see this as adequate to meet the project's requirement. Maybe it's because the project is not a great fit for the National Economic Development funding formula under which it was authorized. So I'm using my time here to suggest that it's time that the Corps work with Congress to figure out some creative ways to adequately fund this project and perhaps some others that recognizes the national security benefits as well as the economic benefits. So I'm hoping that we're going to see future budget requests that will make very meaningful progress on fully funding the project's construction costs. So I'm hoping that maybe you can give me a little more optimism here with a budget request number in FY26 that reflects the cost to complete the project. But also, I'd like to have your assurance that for future budget requests, you'll treat the projects authorized under this authority like Nome, consistent with the provision in Title 33, Section 2242C of the U.S. Code. So, in other words, making sure that it is given equivalent budget consideration and priority as projects recommended solely by national economic development benefits. A long statement there, but you know where I'm going with this. We've got to figure out what the funding plan is going to be for a port like Nome, given the national security imperative. Because if we're going to do $25 million every funding cycle, the Arctic is never going to be addressed. We need a deep water Arctic port.
Yes, Senator. So I think I'll try to give you some assurance here. I think this is more sequencing than in terms of a budget issue. So with the $250 million that came to us in the bipartisan infrastructure law and the $25 million in this budget, that's going to allow us to award what we're calling the phase one, the West Breakwater extension. We need to get that in place before we can start the work on the actual harbor deepening. We could express that capability as early as 25. That's about a $95 million job. And then the final phase of this is the new East Causeway. We estimate about $151 million, but we have what we need to get this first work done. Then we're going to work on the budget for the deepening and then the remaining work to complete the project.
Secretary Connor?
Yeah, if I could just add on the bigger picture question that you raised in your comment, I would agree this is not a great NED fit in our traditional analyses, but yet we did get it in the budget, which I think represents progress, and it's for a lot of the reasons that you've just identified. And we are working on, expanding the range of what we view the benefits of our projects are. My predecessor put in place something called comprehensive benefits, asked the Corps to look at comprehensive benefits as we're planning projects and integrate that and assess that as part of our chief's reports that we're putting together. We're trying to take that to the next step now and to look at institutionalizing that approach through our principles, requirements, and guidelines that maximize our look at benefits. This is net public benefits. It doesn't specifically address national security, but we're moving in this direction to recognize that we can't purely just look at NED benefit costs in assessing the value of these projects. So we want to continue. I think there's appetite for that from all quarters of people invested in the Corps projects, and we will continue to work in the way that you suggested here.
Well, let's keep, again, we got to have open lines of communication here, and we can't have everybody holding their breath, waiting for the next funding cycle, hoping that that we're going to get enough for that next phase. So I'd really like to keep close on this project as well as some of the others we're working on. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. That will end our hearing today, and I want to thank our witnesses and all of my colleagues for participating in today's